Did you hear about the uh, the poor artist who he had no Monet for Degas to make the Van Gogh because he was Baroque?
Oh, no, I didn't hear that one until now.
And well, like
Hello, and welcome to The Foretop. It's a roundtable discussion of today's hot button topics in the wine and food world. And yes, they are going to be hot topics today.
oh yeah.
I'm your host, Catherine Cole. I'm joined by co-host Martin Reyes,
Mm.
MW, and we have
Ooh,
two
no,
guests
no.
joining us for this episode. I'm trying not to laugh, who have built wine empires by embracing the taboo.
That's right, Catherine. This is an interesting episode to prepare for. I started thinking about all the ways in which the wine industry uses taboos to sell. You know, gosh, personal experiences, we've all had them. Yeah, but wine certainly played a role during my sex parties in the wait, no, sorry, that's a different episode. Never mind. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Please jump in, please.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah. So, yeah, wine is a little sinful, and I think the industry has definitely played on that, and there have been some very successful examples, like our guest today, who've built on this idea that wine is a little bit taboo and use that to build really successful brands. My own personal experience, I actually had a client this past year. This brand is all about the owner's love of hosiery and lingerie, to the point where each bottle is wrapped in custom lace Wolford hosiery, very high end. And it's very attractive. But the website, I have to say, as my colleague and I were working on the website, we were sort of, we're like, wow, we are basically doing soft
It's
porn
kind of
now.
like soft porn, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what I've seen. Yeah,
We
yeah.
thought we worked in the wine industry, but
Not that I know what that is, but yeah.
at any rate, we were trying to be totally professional in these meetings, and I think we pulled it off.
Yeah, those straight-faced meetings are going to be hard to keep up. And okay, all joking aside, today we're joined by somebody who has built his brand to some degree from a public facing aspect on sexual innuendo, maybe sensual innuendo is a better word. And there's
Hmm.
much more to that. And I'm really interested in digging into what his inspirations and motivations are. But Jean-Charles Boisset, JCB, he's owner of the Boisset collection, and he's part winery CEO, part performance artist, and that's not an exaggeration. And Forbes magazine has said of him, it is sometimes difficult to tell where the serious winemaker ends and the louche alter ego begins. I'm extremely fascinated by where that conversation goes. But then we also have, right,
Yes,
Catherine?
yes, we're also lucky enough to be joined by Andre Mack, and I feel like with all
Yes,
this louche
Andre.
with all this louche talk in the beginning, we're just taking away from what Andre has
True.
achieved. It's not all about sex for him.
No.
It's about so much more. I mean, he has been such a trailblazer in the wine industry. He was the first, as far as I know, to do kind of the faux generic packaging, the very like simple white and black packaging on wine labels. He was the first winemaker I know to print up irreverent, funny T-shirts. He is the owner of Maison Noire Wines. He is the owner of the Anne Sons Hospitality Group, which has some great restaurants and establishments in Brooklyn. He has his own design agency, Get Fresh Crew. He is a highly respected sommelier and winemaker. He's an author, most recently of the book 99 Bottles. He gets millions of views on Bon Appetit's YouTube channel. I mean, he's a total rock star. And I love, he's just so fresh and irreverent. Like on the Bon Appetit YouTube channel, he'll say things like, wine tasting notes are bullshit. He's just very plain spoken, and his brand has always been so different, and we all have a lot to learn from his approach. So let's get this conversation started.
Let's do it. There's so much here. I can't wait. Okay, so let's start with wine brand names and bottle presentations. Both of our guests have broken taboos with their packaging. Andre, could you start us off by telling us about the genesis of Maison Noir, the title for your brand?
Yeah, absolutely. Maison Noir wines actually started out as Mouton Noir wines. So I guess the first thing I really learned about the wine business is that it is pretty litigious. I'll get to that later, but that's kind of when you play in this bold world, there's a lot of different things that happen. The actual name of the company originally was called Mouton Noir Wines, translates to Black Sheep Wines. It was a nickname that was given to me when I moved to New York. I was the head sommelier at Per Se. There wasn't a lot of people who looked like me who did what I did. And also in between those four walls of the restaurant, I didn't do things the way that most sommeliers did. Hence, I was considered the black sheep within those four walls. It was a nickname that was kind of given to me by my fellow employees. At the beginning, I guess I didn't really know how to handle it, but I quickly embraced it. I designed the logo. It was my screensaver at work. And that was it. That was kind of how it all started. In between or while decanting, priceless bottles of Bordeaux, I would always make jokes about, the wines I was going to make, the names I came up with, the T-shirts I was going to design. All of those things all really started on the floor at Per Se. And Mouton Noir it just felt natural to me. It was like, I am different, right? And I think, by embracing what makes me different, helped me stand out in a way. And that's kind of really how it started.
Yes, you're talking about that your series of swag. Like you mentioned those satirical teas, Barolo King, Run DRC. Those are I see those irreverent teas everywhere in wine now. But you were one of the first to roll, probably the first to roll out those ideas, weren't you?
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of took inspiration from, growing up as a kid and, hanging out at the local skate shop. It was nothing for your favorite skater to hijack the 7-Eleven logo and put his logo in it. You know what I mean? It was just something different.
Yeah.
I feel like, the only t-shirts that were kind of really out there, before that were, like the Wine Diva t-shirts with the rhinestones on it, which really kind of didn't depict what I did. And Thomas was a real t-shirt person. Every time there was an accolade or something like that, they designed T-shirts in house just
This
for
is
the
Thomas Keller you're
employees.
speaking of?
Yeah, Thomas Keller, and that was just kind of that to me. I was always a T-shirt person, and we really kind of loved those T-shirts because they said what we did in a very playful way. And so for me, I felt like when I started my own brand, what I wanted to do was make T-shirts for the industry. I didn't make Barolo, but it's kind of how I saw the world as I, was entrenched in wine. A commercial for Burger King would come on, and they'd be like, "Oh, Barolo King, the king of, Italian wines," and that's kind of how it all started. And it just kind of grew. People in the industry gravitated to it. We sell them all over the world now.
Andre, so many winemakers make those irreverent T-shirts now. You have so many, so many people following in your footsteps, and it's funny because they always seem to think that they are the originals, and I always think, wait, I think I know who
Oh
did
no,
that first.
I have the paperwork. Domaine Romani Conti sent me paperwork from their attorneys for that Run DRC T-shirt. So like I've been in trouble quite a bit. I think the wine industry hadn't really been parodied up until that point, and I think it was a little bit hard for some of them to kind of understand that it wasn't me making fun of them. It was me idolizing them.
That's a really good point because as I was thinking about this episode, I was thinking about the idea of satire, and I think both of you, Jean-Charles and Andre, use a little bit of satire in your wine marketing, in your packaging. There is a little wink, there's a little sense of humor, and typically wine is so serious, and it's all about authenticity and how authentic my wine is. And what's going on with this kind of winking packaging you're using, this sense of satire? Jean-Charles, let's hear from you.
Well, I love what Andre is doing, and I think this is outstanding. I think the wine world, I come from obviously the oldest wine region in the world, Burgundy. I was born in Vougeot at the feet of the Clos Vougeot. So I was born, raised with the tradition, the heritage, the monks, the monasteries, the Ursuline sisters. So I was literally in that traditional world. I think in anything we do in life, it's very important to always be in the tangent of innovation and obviously approach the world in a very oblique and different way and look at it with a different prism. I think wine, as Andre is doing and many of you are doing, is a phenomenal, exciting, and insane inspirational beverage, and it should be treated as such in all its form, like fashion, like decoration and interior design, like anything we do. And this is why I've always pushed it as well, from traditional packaging all the way to the Surrealist, which carries actually my line of jewelry that you could see. And the Surrealist has a jewelry by hand affixed on a clear glass for 100-point Cabernet and blend from Napa Valley. So that's
So wait. I got to stop you because clear glass on Cabernet is totally irreverent and just you don't see that. I mean, for those of us listening who are not, are just starting to learn about wine, what's going on with that?
Well, I wanted the bottle to be eternal. So first, it's a quite pricey wine. It's around $400 a bottle. It's again, limited edition, 6,000 bottles produced. And I wanted to have a bottle which becomes the memory. All my life since birth, I've been making wine literally since birth. And since at 10 years old, I was making my own Clos Vougeot and Musigny and Bonne Marque cuvée. So I've been in it all my life. I've seen people keeping a bottle, signing the bottle, putting it on the mantle, in their kitchen, on the fireplace, in their obviously cellar. I thought, what about making a wine that you can reuse and use it as a water bottle or even another decanter? So as long as you protect it, it comes in a beautiful velvet pouch. It's in a clear glass with a glass top finish. It doesn't, impede the wine to evolve over time. And we started that in 2012. So we have now 10 years of history. The wine gets better over time. So it doesn't alter the natural aging of the wine. And it creates a stellar package with a beautiful Surrealist, jewelry on it. And I called it Surrealist because I love to look at the world in a different way. I believe I was a true Surrealist artist in the 20s with Dali, with Picasso, with Deschamps, with Man Ray, with that whole era. So I really believe, as we do in fashion, look at Alexander McQueen, having leather with scale, with bones, with fur on a haute couture dress, or even Thierry Mugler or Jean-Paul Gaultier. In design, we do it. In cars, we do it. In interior design, we do it. Why not in wine? The content, as we all know, can be extremely delightful and inspirational and phenomenal. The packages should as well. So I think if the wine is amazing, you should allow yourself a very large latitude of creativity and innovation because, again, it's all that presentation that really brings that new dimension to wine rather than just purely wine. It's the celebration, the touch, the sensory, everything.
I find it fascinating that both of you, Andre and Jean-Charles, you both take inspiration from outside the traditional bounds of what we, quote unquote, we the industry think is acceptable. Okay, in every case, in not every case, but in these cases, we're talking about where you are both breaking the taboo of mixing culture clusters that normally don't have anything to do with each other, or wine packaging itself reaches across to inspirations that normally don't associate with them. Fine wine with junk food or video games or different kinds of music that doesn't have anything to do or our art or the art form like you mentioned, Jean Charles, where you've got this bottle that then is a forever bottle that is reused for water or something else that has nothing to do with its original intent. And I find it fascinating that you've got this. I think Andre, you mentioned this before, where you were thinking you don't see wine as a status symbol, and so often we do. And I feel as though perhaps some of your messaging is you're trying to potentially democratize or demystify or call out the pedestal of wine is actually not really a marble pedestal, but more of a it's not a pedestal at all. It's just cardboard with cheap paint, and you can make whatever you want out of wine.
No, I totally believe that. I think the whole idea of like high art and wine always went together. What I realized what it felt like to me was always, people collected things. So if they collected art, they collected cars, they collected watches, they collected wine. And those things always seemed to go together. I think for me, the idea of art and wine, it still goes together. But if you look back and you start to look at the art that was coveted, so you're looking at Picasso and all those, which they still are. But now what's kind of creeped into that market is street art. So you're looking at, Banksy, Cause, and those kind of things. Like the artists have changed, and it's a little bit different. And kind of marrying those two with wine, to me, always seemed like that worked in a way. For me, the packaging, all of my packaging really derives from me being a kid and shopping in the grocery store. My mom was one of those where we went, we did one shop a month, huge shop, 2 or 3 hours kind of stuff, right? We went down every single aisle, and every single aisle was a cornucopia of colors, mosaic like. And then you went down this one aisle, which was kind of unbelievable, and everything was stark bright. And that aisle was called the generic aisle. And the generic was before grocery stores caught on to branding. They used to buy a brand called generic, where it was just all white, and then in in letters across black letters, it said what it was. So it'd say beer, white cans, beer. Chips would say chips, peanut butter, and so forth. And I just remember going down that aisle and how like it kind of like always struck me. I always took a step back, and then when I thought about wine packaging, and you walk through the wine store, there's tons of colors. And for me, I wanted something to stick out. And the fact that it was black and white made sense to me. The name of the company was called Mouton Noir. So it all seemed to kind of fit in a way. And for me, I wanted to speak to a younger audience about wine. And I felt like you couldn't really do that, if I put my name on it. And then again, like, what did that mean to anybody? I was new to wine. So, what the fuck does Andre Mac mean to anybody? Right? Mac Estates, just one of those things that didn't really drive with me. And so I thought that people, sayings and things like that people would gravitate to. And I wanted to make wine that was fun. And, ultimately it was what was inside that counted. And, I ended up designing my own because I couldn't afford a designer. So for me, it was all just kind of by chance, like, hey, I don't have this, so this is what I decided to do. And that's kind of how I started. And it was just things I was into.
I'm glad that you swore right there, man. I'm really glad you swore, because that swearing was taboo for so long. Wine. You
No,
don't see.
no,
No. It's
absolutely.
like some of the most popular notes that I wrote were the irreverent ones back in the day. In my own small way, I was trying to add irreverence, and my
Yeah.
boss would be like, "You can't swear. No, wine's supposed to be this, this sacred thing," and it could very well
The
be.
sophisticated thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For some it is. Right. No, absolutely. And I just felt like, hey, I grew up on hip hop. Most of the kids who didn't look like me that I worked with, so did they. And for me, it was just something different. I knew about wine, but like I just knew that it didn't have to be this one thing. It could be, but for me, I wanted it to be all inclusive and European, and like in the sense that it wasn't a meal unless wine was on the table. It was something that was inclusive for everyone, and that was always my approach.
I love that our two guests have completely different aesthetics. Like, your two aesthetics could not be any different. We've got Andre with a very minimalist, kind of a street aesthetic, and then we got Jean-Charles with this look that's almost kind of Baroque that he's bringing to his bottles, putting jewelry on his bottles. And yet what I'm hearing is a similar message about just taking a different tack with your branding, with your marketing, and connecting with people in a different way. And I'm just fascinated by what I'm hearing. But I would love to transition the conversation a little bit, because one thing I've noticed about both of you in your marketing and branding is you have used sex. Let's talk about
Sex. I was
sex.
going to say
Let's talk
sex. Yes.
about it. Yes. Jean-Charles, let's start with you, especially as it relates to Raymond Vineyards. But also, you have a marketing campaign where you go by this alter ego called Agent 69. But at Raymond Vineyards, you famously got mannequins and lingerie hanging from fuzzy swings in your tank room. So what's going on with this? What's up with the use of sexual innuendo in selling wine? Does it work?
Well, I feel it's not sex, if I may say. I'm really of the era, again, of we talk surrealism, we talk seduction, we talk sophistication, we talk fabrics, we talk texture, we talk materials, we talk the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, the cabaret style. We talk the Moulin Rouge, Crazy Horse, Paradis Latin, the Lido, the era of performance, the era of putting at the epicenter wine, emotion, and theater together.
Hmm.
So I personally don't speak sex per se. Sex is maybe a consequence of what your subconscious may take you to. But for us, it's more about seduction. It's all about suggesting ideas about a look, a feel, an emotion, an allure, and a style. So when we put the mannequins, it's about dresses of texture that could be at the Carnaval of Rio, that could be at the Carnaval of Venice, that could be as well on a fashion show. So we bring materials for texture of descriptive of wine. We bring, lipstick and phenomenal colors for the sensory of tasting and feeling. We bring other elements to it that really deal with sounds like great music and DJing and mixing tables for sound and emotion. So what we try to do is really not even try, because that's who we are, is we transport you into another world where your inner self is at the forefront and you look at the world again in a way that you haven't thought of it. So showing a winery, and I'm very fortunate to own wineries from the 11th century to today. It could be an 18th century chateau. It could be a monastery from the 13th century, like Bonpas. It could be the Clos de Vougeot-Blanc, where I live, which is a 17th century destination. There we remain to the period. At Raymond, we had a blank canvas, winery founded in 1974. We had a very simple farm building. We said, what do we do inside that could be unexpected, that bring the emotion, the vibration, the magnetism of people together into a phenomenal scene? Like a Bergdorf Goodman, window, like a Neiman Marcus or Dolce Gabbana window that entices you of having your imagination take you somewhere else. Wine, we use it as our muse, and the environment as a place where you could touch, feel, sense, and be part of this unbelievable environment that is, again, seductive. We don't actually do anything with sex whatsoever. It's really more feel, emotion, sensory, vibration that we create from within.
I never thought I would. Well, maybe I did right now listening to you because I know your brands. I know you've known for a while, Jean-Charles. And at the same time, I think that those that maybe don't pay close attention, or they know you from a distance, or your wines from a distance, it just struck me. Do you feel like that there's sometimes people misunderstand your messaging?
Absolutely. Similar to Ava Max, So Am I, or Oh My God, two great songs. She's a great singer, as you know. My very good friend is John Legend or Lady Gaga and a few others as such that I love to play in all the wineries. Being misunderstood is totally fine as long as people are willing to be curious and discover. Prime example, today I was in the crystal cellar, full of crystal and mirrors. And the person was saying, it's amazing from where I'm sitting, I can actually see the whole cellar. And I said to the person, I'm so glad you're sitting at my favorite place. And this is actually where you could see through a game of 28 mirrors the whole winery and whatever happens in every corner of it. And the idea of mirrors is to see the unseen, is to perceive what you don't always see, and to see yourself reacting towards wine tasting. So the idea of reflection and reflecting and being reflective to you and others in the room. I think there's a lot of secret symbols in our places. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of secret numbers. There's a lot of octagonal shape. There's a lot of stars with seven arms. There's a lot of ideas that really come from above and below that brings the energy together. And why the places, I think, have a lot of this energy is because that's what I love, is to bring that level of energy and sense of interrogation and transportation. And I feel if you look at it in one dimension, you see what you see. But if you allow yourself, thanks to wine, to elevate your mind and transcend a pure object, like Magritte, who said, Ceci n'est pas une pipe. This is not a pipe. And it's a pipe, but it is not a pipe. Is it a pipe? What do you really see? And Martin, you very much this way yourself as a trilingual, brilliant man. You always see in food and wine and art, because I've seen you so much into environment, into looking at what is behind the idea of what you see. And I believe this is what the world of wine or spirits or beer or alcoholic beverage can do, thanks to the help of a little bit intake, is allow us to interrogate ourselves and go beyond. And I think that's what is important. Is wine is a form of art. Look at what the world of art has done lately with NFTs and the metaverse and where we're going. So we just started.
Okay. Yes, but I want to get back to my original question.
Okay.
I do though, Jean-Charles. I really appreciate what you've been saying, because I am one of those people who at first was kind of like, why are there mannequins in lingerie hanging from swings in the tank room? Like, what is going on there? Should I be offended as a woman? Like, what is happening here? But
Well, there's men hanging as well.
Okay. So, but I see where you're getting what you're getting at, and but I do wonder if part of the wine experience is also this sense of titillation, this sense of we are sort of splurging on this beverage. It's kind of
Sin.
kind of a sin. We don't
Yeah.
really need it to survive. We just need it to have fun. And Andre, I wanted to turn to you, because I think, was OPP one of the first wines you introduced? Was it the first wine you introduced?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Other People's Pinot was the first wine that we released. One of the first ones along that point. I mean, obviously, we know from other industries, sex sells, right? I mean, that's not a question. It applies to wine in a lot of different ways as well. But it's interesting for me to play on those things. Like Other People's Pinot, that's the name of the wine. OPP is just the acronym for that. So wherever it took your mind is wherever it took your mind,
And we should
right?
stop for those folks who are younger than us and
Oh,
don't know about
yeah.
the song.
How can I explain it? I'll take you frame by frame it to have you all jump and shall we sing in it.
I always like to tell people that it depends on where you're from, right? If you're from Ontario, it means Ontario provincial, Ontario Provincial Police, right? If you're from New Orleans, it means Orleans Parish Prison. It can mean a lot of different things. The most popular saying of that was a rap song called OPP. I think the radio version was Other People's Property. And in some ways those were connected with this wine, but there was no connection. When I first started, I bought 8 barrels of finished wine from someone. We brought it into the winery. We always called those 8 barrels, referred to those 8 barrels as the Other People's, because I didn't make it, and we blended it in with wine, right, that I made. And kind of behind the gun, kind of really just at the beginning of learning the business, and didn't have a designer, and just said, hey, I'm just going to call it Other People's Pinot and put OPP on the front label. I'm gonna make it look like my kid did it, and from my visions of walking down the generic aisle, and that was it. And so that there was an innuendo, which I thought was pretty interesting in a way, and telling, as I went out to sell it, and have been selling it over since 2008. Some people were like, I can't have that on my back bar. And I was always like, but why? And they were like, because of what it means. I was like, but it means Other People's Pinot is what it means. The idea of having something on the back bar that said that, some people were offended, and I just could never figure it out. We danced the line a little bit in that way. I do think that
And
when
it's
I think
good.
about wine, yeah, when I think
Andre,
about
I'm
wine,
glad you are, because not
thank
to
you.
interrupt you as I
No, go
am,
ahead.
but I think it's so important. Yourself as a newcomer is doing phenomenal things, and we're so proud of what you're doing. And we cannot always please 100%. I mean, a Dolce Gabbana campaign or Benetton campaign or Chanel campaign, for that matter, the latest Louis Vuitton is
Mm-hmm.
challenge, because not
Correct.
everyone does like it. And so what? I think we need to take sometimes what we call a parti pris. That's a very good French word, which means a direction, and stick to it. And as long as there's a raison d'être, a reason to exist, as you have with your wines and OPP as well. My life is Pinot. I obviously tonight serve Clos Vougeot, and I'm serving Musigny and Bonne Mare. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
most insane Pinot. And at the same
Yep.
time, I'd love to serve your wine, because why not? I think the world of Pinot should be as large as we can and as wide as we can, and all of us belong to it. So, I just wanted to reinforce what you're doing. I think it's fabulous. And even if people overreact to it, be it, they'll come to it.
I feel like there's a lot of room for everybody, and I feel like the more that you push the boundaries, JCB, the more that you do that, like it gives the other people, newcomers, old, people who've been around, industry veterans, more of an idea of where they can go. They can push the envelope and do better, like fun things, interesting things, work with people outside of the industry, bring new ideas in. And for me, that's always been it. It's just like, hey, I'm going to do this, and then hopefully everybody else will have the courage to do something else, and maybe this pushes it there, and then they do more, and just make it inclusive and fun and not stodgy. Wine can be tons of different things. It doesn't have to be, just for the ascot wearing section of it. It could be fun. You can, you're starting to see that. You're starting to see MBA. You're starting to see all these different people kind of gravitate to wine, and it's just a beautiful thing to see in just my very short 20 years of being in the industry.
We are delighted to be sponsored by Grand Moraine. If you plan to visit Oregon or if you live here, definitely reserve a tasting and get on down to Grand Moraine. It's an open-air winery in a really beautiful hillside spot just outside the towns of Yamhill and Carlton in the foothills of the Coast Range, right here in the Willamette Valley. And there's a little secret about the Willamette Valley right now, and that is that our Chardonnay is absolutely beyond. It's so delicious right now. We have got a Chardonnay renaissance going on here. And Grand Moraine Estates Vineyard is planted to Dijon clone Chardonnay. And after a gentle whole cluster pressing, winemaker Shane Moore lets that juice slowly ferment for more than 12 months with regularly stirring for texture in mostly neutral oak. Now, if you don't speak wine, let me just translate. This is a really painstakingly made, silky, delicious white wine. You've got to try it. But don't take my word for it. Order that delicious Chardonnay online. Go to grandmoraine.com. That's GRANMORAINE, grandmoraine.com. And enter the promo code 4TOP for complimentary shipping. Thanks, Grand Moraine.
Both of you touch on something that I think is really, really interesting about wine. Has a double-edged sword itself. It's its own worst enemy and its own greatest champion, because it always comes with a sort of a challenge. As just like both of you said this, and both of you touched on it in different ways. Like, you imagine you're a wine bottle showing up to a party. People automatically look at you. They know you have this invisible user's manual, and whether you're a novice or a connoisseur, they react to you. And we got to face it. No other beverage throws out that challenge to be consumed like wine. Like, do you know me? Do you want me? Do you even deserve me?
Mhm.
Those kinds of questions come through. But at the same time, it provokes those opinions from every vantage point. Andre, you brought up the punk rock movement of wine, natural wine, and JCB, excuse me, Jean Charles, you brought up um, ways to both evoke art, but also to change the perception of something that is on the surface maybe sexual to something more deeper, more meaningful, something like an enduring, emotional, mysterious journey that happens to also pull into it energy that's sensual. That's much more fascinating than
Exactly.
just calling something sexy or not sexy.
Absolutely. I believe, we are in the world in general, seem to somehow, except in certain countries, be afraid of seduction and charm and allowing flirt and flirtatious and emotion to transcend. So, what will be wine tomorrow is an interesting thought. What is spirits today is maybe a much more dairy world than wine is when you think about it.
Jean-Charles, you're actually this is perfect, because I wanted to ask everyone to kind of to sum up our conversation today. Why is it that wine marketing so often dabbles in the taboo? And what I'm hearing from you is that there are a lot of similarities between wine and fashion, which makes a lot of sense. These are both luxury products. But I think there's got to be more reasons than just that. I'm wondering, is it because there are so many small wine brands? I mean, wine is sort of unusual in that it's not, I mean, yes, of course, there are a few very big wine brands, but the industry seems to be dominated by these smaller brands, and they do need to separate themselves from one another. I mean, what are some other reasons for why we see this very irreverent packaging, specifically with wine, and this very irreverent marketing?
I think we are entering in a world that, thanks to people like Andre, is really bringing wine emotionally at every level of not just price points, but attitude and allure. Similar to fashion. I mean, when did you see? I was in Paris 10 days ago, going to formal meetings, people wearing a tie and phenomenal Louboutin, as an example, sneakers. It's okay. It's not necessarily leather shoes, or it's okay to wear just a scarf and not a tie. Or it's okay to wear just a t-shirt and with a jacket. So I think we've evolved into very much different people, and I believe wine is following that trend, not necessarily ahead of it, but at least following that trend. So from the content to everything surrounding it and its consumption, we've evolved, and I think that's so cool. I was in a party that I created at Christmas time, and it was Orient Express, and we had this 1930s gun. I was having Clos de Vougeot Blanc in it and champagne. Open your mouth, and here it is, a little intake of 2 centiliters of champagne.
It's awesome.
We were having a lot of fun. And people wanted to do it at home and serve champagne and play with wine, enjoy wine, take wine and have a bathtub with wine, as I do in JCB 69. I mean, take a shower with wine, and wine should be part of everything. So why not?
Let's hear from Andre as well. Andre, what are your thoughts? Why is wine marketing so often dabbling in the taboo successfully?
Well, I believe because it's new, right? Before the wine marketing really, I mean, it existed, but really didn't, and those kind of things. I feel like it's just an open frontier. As wine becomes, younger people are drinking wine, it becomes it's more relevant within, the American table. This is what we do as marketers, as Americans, right? This is a time-o thing that like sex sells. Why don't we apply it here? And also, like, it's interesting. I think we didn't really talk about it, but like, it's an interesting thing where sometimes you try to stay away from it. Alcohol is the great enabler, right? In a way, right? You say what you feel. You tell somebody that you love them or you have a crush on them. It's like, I think it's that thing of like wine is like special, and it's this thing, but it kind of you go for it when you drink it.
There's these interviews and articles that are written around wine from people or authors who almost are gleefully gotcha moments. And I think this is part of it too, in the sense that wine has such a long established history of being, exclusive luxury. I mean, champagne marketing for 150, almost 200 years. Really corner that luxury market, and centuries old institutions. And why do we call wine lovers snobs?
I'm just really excited where wine goes. Jean Charles was talking about that. It just seems like it's in a pivotal place in a way of like, it could go anywhere. There's tons of different people in it and exciting. And I don't know. I just feel that I'm excited just that I could be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And that's a wonderful note to end on and transition to our dessert course, or our dessert wine course, or our port course, whatever you want to call it, Madeira.
Doesn't have to be wine, but yeah.
It's figurative anyway. It's where we just each go around and share something wonderful we've been enjoying this week. Andre, did you bring a dessert wine, a figurative dessert wine to share?
No, I did. I've been enjoying some ice cream called Bad Habit. And,
Ooh.
it spawned, it's a couple that used to work in restaurants, and they're making their own handcrafted ice cream. And it's amazing, really kind of great flavors, not always sweet. It's kind of somewhat savory. The burnt cheesecake is amazing. It doesn't last that long in our house. We buy it for our store that we carry it here in our neighborhood. But it's just amazing, and it's you could tell it's made by restaurant people. It's got a lot of stabilizer in it. So, but it's a beautiful thing. It's just awesome. And that's what I would share with you guys.
And great branding, that name.
Bad Habit ice cream. There it is.
Oh, that's so good. I love it. We'll have to check that out. Thank you. Jean-Charles, did you bring something to recommend this week?
Absolutely. Tarte tatin, a very famous French recipe, which is an apple tart with a melting caramel and ice cream on it with a Tokai Azul from Buena Vista Winery, the oldest winery in California, where we did, in fact, the joint city between Sonoma and the city of Tokai. And in return, they offered us the privilege to be able to make Tokai in Tokai.
I had no idea. This is cool.
It's awesome, Martin, and it's
that sounds amazing.
Sensual.
Yum.
You're talking about sensuality. You have texture, all those feelings horizontally in your mouth that is exciting your papi. It's umami, and the two together, French recipe, Tokai, from an American winery, Buena Vista. I mean, we're living the dream of unity and bringing diversity to the world and the table.
But that's that reminds me that whenever people don't like dessert wine, you can bring them a Tokai and be like, so I hear you don't like dessert wine, but try this first, then decide.
Yeah, got it.
We got it.
It was actually a wine geek joke. It's not really a dad joke, but try this. For those who don't know, it's the noble rot. It's what you call it. Sauternes and Tokai and Carte de Chaume and a few places, and it's a noble rot that makes the grape shrivel up and it tastes amazing even though it looks gross. That's how you make high-end dessert wine. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying we're serving an Essencia tonight, so 2% alcohol, 700 grams of sugar in a crystal spoon at dessert and after dessert. And it's so fun because it's really the wines of the god and the goddess, from Egypt all the way to Greece to then obviously Mesopotamia to naturally now Hungary as well. But it's exciting because it's unexpected. And again, it's that burst and explosion of flavor and tertiary flavor that you find in wine that makes you think wine is not what I thought, but it's now so exciting.
Wow. Yum.
Okay, I got my
You got yours?
I got my
dessert.
My dessert. Yes, it is a new coffee that I'm trying out called. Did I tell you guys about this yet? Grounds for Change.
I've heard of it, but no.
Does it sound familiar at all? Or not?
It does sound familiar.
Yeah, so it's a B Corp certified coffee producer, and you all should check out B Corp companies in general. They're awesome, and there's a lot that can be said more about that someday maybe. But I like the name Grounds for Change, and they have fair trade, organic, carbon-free coffees, single origins, and from the decaffeinated stuff. Decaffeinated stuff is pretty good. I finally figured out the pressure and the grind, and I can make an enjoyable decaf and feel good about the planet. And so I'm plugging Grounds for Change because both the name is awesome and because the decaf ain't all that bad.
Yum, yum, yum. I'm really enjoying this dessert course. Well, mine really quickly. I thought of this while Jean-Charles was speaking. Jean-Charles, you referenced the 7-pointed star, the heptagram. This is very mysterious, spooky stuff. This is something that I actually worked with a wine brand this year called Demeus, Demeus. And folks, if you want to see a wild wine brand that is doing something totally different, they are all about Ouija boards and tarot cards and crystals and I want to say satanic rituals, but it's in a positive way, not a not a horrible way. And the winemaker is very serious, and he puts giant crystals in his barrels. So anyway, talk about a wine brand that is pushing boundaries and doing something totally different. Definitely a lot of 7-pointed stars on that website, which I worked on. And I have to say it was really fun doing the copywriting for them because I had to get in a totally different space. So check it out, Demeus. Thanks so much to Andre Mack. You can find him online at maisonnoirwines.com, and do check out his YouTube performances for the Bon Appetit channel. And
you can find Jean-Charles Boisset, a fascinating individual and a growing icon in Napa Valley, and you can find him online at Boisse Collection. Whether you side with him or not, I love the challenge that he throws down. I love the challenge that Andre throws down. It makes our industry better, not being the same monochromatic beige color of average writing tasting notes. Some of them that I've written myself. So there you have it.
I mean, that is so true of Andre as well. He has just completely changed the industry.
Exactly.
I think these two have single-handedly, in many ways, changed the industry, both of them. And you know who else is shaping the industry? Martin
Who?
Reyes. Where can our listeners find you, Martin?
You can find me at reyeswinegroup.com, and you could find me at this is certified sustainable.wine, and possibly even napathrives.org, and who knows where else.
Always pushing the envelope, of course. And you can find me, Catherine Cole, at catherinecole.com, but don't go there. Go to theforetop.org and head over to our social media channels where you can let us know what you think about taboo marketing. There are so many different wine labels we didn't even discuss on this episode. What are the wine labels that have titillated you or offended you or opened your eyes? Please let us know. And please subscribe to The Foretop on your favorite podcast app. And please do leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts so that other folks can find us. We are signing out for this evening. I'm in the high-fiber, protein-packed city of Portland, Oregon. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
This has been the Foretop Podcast. Catherine Cole is our executive producer, Izzy Kramer is our senior producer, and I'm Keelan King, sound supervisor. We are also assisted by audio editor, Michelle Richards, our production assistant, Rachel Grossman, creative assistant, Lex Rule, and editorial assistant, Nick Toole. Please visit our website, theforetop.org, to learn more about us, listen to back episodes, reach out to us on social media, and purchase books written by our amazing panelists. And if you have not already subscribed to The Foretop on iTunes or Spotify, please do so and leave us a rating. Stay safe out there, and thanks for listening.